Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Fox 5 News Live. I'm Alex Whitler. Thank you so much for being here with us this Wednesday late morning. We have lots of news to cover for you, starting with some breaking news. We have just learned some new information about these threats in Barrow County. I know many of you have been talking about this online. We're going to break down the threat, what it was, and when it was lifted. We're also getting you prepared for some potentially crazy weekend weather. You might remember that we did get hit with a January storm around this time last year. Well, it looks like we could be staring down the barrel of that situation very shortly here. We're also anticipating the government shutdown. Maybe we'll have one. Could happen in just about 10 days. And another big story we're following for you this hour. President Trump is in Davos for the World Economic Summit. We're going to keep you posted on it all, but we do want to start you off with the weather. So let's go ahead and bring in Fox 5 Storm Team meteorologist Alex Forbes, who has been very busy tracking not just cold conditions for the past couple of days, but also the possibility for some icy conditions. And I chose to say the word ice instead of snow on purpose this time.
Well, so I think the forecast is coming into a little clearer view, and it is down the ice lane rather than the snow lane, which means for everybody at home, this isn't the fun winter weather event, right? You're not going to go outside and enjoy the snow. Instead, you're looking at travel disruptions and probably some power disruptions. So we're getting closer to it, and today they're expecting to see from the National Weather Service a winter storm watch to be issued for the weekend that will include Metro Atlanta and northern Georgia. We're going to talk more about this ice storm coming up in just a moment. First, I want to show you what's going to happen for the rest of the day today and into the night tonight, because we are going to see some rain across Metro Atlanta and North Georgia. It's not going to amount to a whole lot. You're going to notice those clouds thickening up today, and then through the overnight hours, that's when you're going to notice your rain chances on the rise, likely into the morning commute tomorrow. Again, all rain here, not looking for any wintry weather impact. So let's talk about the weekend now. Here's what we know and what we don't know. So there is going to be a major winter storm across the southeastern United States with ice and snow. As I just mentioned, it's looking more and more like an ice situation for us, which would lead to hazardous travel, likely impassable roads for all vehicles. You get a half-inch of ice on the ground, you're not going anywhere, and likely power outages because of that ice on the power lines and on the trees. And oh, by the way, mix in a 20 to 30 mile an hour wind, and that is when you run into some real problems. So our thinking right now is wherever you are Friday night, wherever you go to bed Friday night, is probably where you need to stay. Now, what we don't know is how much ice is going to occur in each location, when the wintry precip is going to begin, and this has an impact, right? Because there is a world where maybe it doesn't begin until Saturday mid-morning. That's the absolute latest, it looks like. But we still have indications of overnight Friday, so we're not up for changing our timing just yet. Also looking at a wide range of ice accumulation across the area. Let's talk about ice storm impacts and what is in the mix whenever you get these. A little amount has a huge impact. So between a quarter inch and a half inch, that's when you get into isolated power outage territory. That's when travel is not advised, and then you get isolated falling trees. Once you get over a half inch, that is what the National Weather Service describes as destructive, which is why we are using that word. Widespread power outages, impassable roads for all vehicles. I don't care how big your tires are on your truck, a half inch of ice is a half inch of ice, and that's where you run into widespread tree damage, which is obviously tied to the power outages as well. So this storm is now beginning to come into range of, we'll call them our midterm models. So we've been using a lot of our long-term models over the past couple of days. Well, this morning we can start getting to a higher resolution. So this is what we call the Barron 15K model. So from this point forward, this has a much higher degree of reliability than our global models do. I want everybody to remember that here through the day. So there's your overnight rain threat into tomorrow morning. Some clouds around, and then really Friday afternoon and evening, we're going to be looking off to the west and watch this winter storm take shape. Dallas, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Memphis, likely looking at significant impacts there. So here we go, Saturday mid-morning. Notice some of this starts as rain in the metro, rain in Birmingham, but then you start as ice in northeast Georgia and in northwest Georgia. And you stay as ice through the entire day, even as that continues to spill down to the south. Now, from a TV standpoint, right here at Fox 5, if you get Fox 5 on your TV, you are experiencing ice at this point Saturday evening. And we continue it. There we go into Sunday morning. and then it finally gets out of here by Sunday evening with some snow showers on the back end of this. So that's why we're looking at a mostly ice event. Here are some of the totals here. Play this forward Thursday, Friday. So really beginning the impact here overnight Friday for North and Northeast Georgia. So remember, over a half inch is when you get into that destructive territory. Noonan, Carrollton, South Fulton, Atlanta, Marietta, Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Canton, Gainesville. We can go through the whole list here. We are looking at a large part of northern Georgia with a significant ice storm through the weekend. So here's what to watch for today. We do have a winter storm watch on the way. Here's something I want to point out. How does this shape up on the short range models? So we just looked at a mid-range model. Well, this is going to start to come into view of the short range models in short order. And one more thing to point out. When I got to work this morning, I got this sense online of what people were saying. There was one model run overnight that brought the ice line further north.
Okay.
And the sense was everybody's saying, oh, it's not going to happen, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Well, if I hung my hat on any one model run
you feel
all the
confident
time,
in this
one? I don't. It's not consistent, right? That one shift north was one run out of 100 models.
Okay.
So as you're seeing that floating around out there, one, that model still shows an ice storm for us. It's just that line's maybe Lagrange instead of Cordele. But, you know, I got this sense this morning that everybody was like, see, it's not going to happen. Well, come talk to me Sunday night.
Okay, we will do that. And I want to keep you guys in the know here. This is a news conversation, so please don't feel like you're just listening to us talk at you. If you have a comment, question, concern, or if there's a story that stands out to you, please don't hesitate to write it in the chat. I'm watching live on our TikTok, and I see many of you are responding with exclamation points. Some are saying, here we go. When will it hit Texas? So please stay close to Fox 5 on your Fox 5 Atlanta website, the free Fox local app, because that's where we're going to keep you guys up to date.
Yep.
Lucky us. All right, Alex, thank you. We appreciate it. We do still have some other weather-related news to tell you about. You heard Alex mention the possibility of destructive snow and ice. Well, there are some crews that are making sure that we're prepared for all of this. So first, I want to point out that Cobb County is now opening up one of its shelters. I believe they only have one shelter in the entire county, and they plan on keeping it open for 12 consecutive days. So that should give you an idea of just how serious this is. But bigger picture here, Georgia officials say that they're already preparing. You know how you often see the reporters out on the side of the road in front of a truck that's pouring out that salt and brine mixture. Well, they're already getting that ready. State and local agencies are mobilizing with GDOT, getting those road treatments ready for any potential power crews or outages. Everyone's on standby, even though we might not see this icy situation until the weekend. And you can count on us too. We are mentally preparing for what we need to keep you guys abreast of. So state agencies are doing so. Your local news is doing so. And officials say ice is the biggest concern, as you heard Alex say there. So moving forward here, if you live in Cobb County and you need any shelters, know that the address is 1297 Bells Ferry Road. If you missed it, I can write that in the chat for you. You guys let me know if that's of interest and I can do so. But I'm reading some information from my notes here. It plans to open its doors Saturday and remain open through February 3rd. So keep that in mind. Officials expect this severe situation to impact several people each night. Could be hundreds of them, as the temperatures are forecast to remain dangerously low. So we do have extreme cold and the possibility of ice or snow moving into the region, and they've got their volunteers preparing for this as well. So again, we are hyper-focused on Cobb County right now, but we're still asking some questions, figuring out if there will be any shelters opening in DeKalb or Atlanta. As soon as we get that information, we'll be sure to update you. I do want to get you guys back out to that breaking news. There have been some threats going on in Barrow County that forced the school to go into some sort of lockdown. So I want to read my notes to make sure that I've got it all accurate for you. The schools for the entire district were placed on what they call a hold and secure status just this morning because apparently they were receiving several different threatening phone calls. So the Barrow County school system said all staff and students are safe. I just spoke to the producer of this news conversation at the very beginning of the hour. She says that that security alert was lifted just before the show started. So if you're a parent and you're just now hearing about this for the first time, you can go ahead and sigh relief there. But I know many of you had already heard about this and you were wondering, what does this mean? They were encouraging parents not to show up to the school, not to try to get your child, but to give them some space so that authorities could complete their investigation. So again, we are very happy to report that that situation is now a thing of the past. Another big story for you this hour. We're talking about human sex trafficking efforts to shut them down in the city of Atlanta. So I want to do a pulse check here and see if Tyler Fingert can hear me. He's the one who's staying on top of this press conference for us. Tyler, how are you?
Yeah, hey, Alex, good afternoon to you, or good morning to you. We're still in the 11 o'clock hour with the FIFA World Cup coming to town in just a matter of months. The city of Atlanta and also the world's busiest airport say they stand ready to be able to fight human trafficking, which is an ongoing commitment that they've been talking about yearly since this is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Take a look behind me. They just finished wrapping up where the news conference was held just a short while ago to talk about the efforts that they're going to be doing to make sure that they can keep people in our community safe and folks who may be coming through our area who could possibly be victims of human trafficking. A number of speakers from airport leadership to Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens talked about how human trafficking is a global problem which preys on the vulnerability of people. They say that with the World Cup coming in June and July, more movement and people here means there's more opportunity to exploit. Officials made it clear that human trafficking will not go unseen and unchecked, but they call on people in our community to see something. If they see something, to say something. Mayor Dickens said traffickers count on the rest of us not to say anything, so people must speak up. The Georgia Attorney General's office said human trafficking is vitally important to them, and they have helped recover over 200 children and secured 70 convictions. The Atlanta police chief talked about how his officers are trained to spot human trafficking and focus on a victim-centered approach. Officials provided some big indicators on signs of human trafficking, including holding no identification or if that ID is held by another person, also accompanied by an overly controlling travel companion, and also displaying signs of anxiety, depression, fear, annoyance, resistance, or belligerence to authorities. During the news conference, officials emphasized the importance of public involvement and the role of reporting complaints. Take a listen to what we were told.
We take this responsibility seriously. We train our teams to recognize the signs. We work alongside law enforcement that you'll hear from later and our federal partners. We collaborate with advocacy organizations, and we speak up because awareness saves lives and silence does not.
Human trafficking continues to be one of the fastest growing criminal enterprises in the entire world. The National Human Trafficking Hotline says the average age of a trafficking victim is just under 15 years old. These are young people having their lives stolen from them and their futures disrupted. So in Atlanta, we are never going to stop targeting these traffickers.
Yeah, and so airport employees here are trained on what to notice and what to spot for maybe someone who is a victim of human trafficking. We heard from someone from Delta Airlines, one of their legal counsel, who talked about what the airline does for both crews here on the ground and also their in-flight crews. I think the flight attendants who may be spotting things, different things during flight of a passenger who may be a victim of human trafficking. So they say it's a group effort. Different people along the board are obviously involved in this. You know that you have different people here at the airport, from TSA to what's known as the green coats here, the information people here at the world's busiest airport. They want to make sure that people are trained all across the board to be able to spot potential people who are unfortunately victims of human trafficking. And an interesting note that I thought was interesting was the Delta Airlines representative said that 90,000 employees are trained trained around the world to be able to spot human trafficking. And that's important to note because Delta employs somewhere around 100,000 to 110,000 employees around the world. So a good portion of their staff throughout this country and throughout the world are trained to be able to spot some of the indicators that could indicate that a person is being trafficked. And so the real goal here is to make sure that they can protect the vulnerable and try to get them the help that they need. We also did hear from someone who is a former human trafficking victim. She has turned her pain into purpose. We're working on that part of the story, and we'll hopefully have that a little bit later coming up on Fox Local. Alex.
All right, Tyler, we appreciate you keeping us in the know on all of that. You bring up some really good points because we know Hartsfield-Jackson is the world's busiest airport. We've got several different interstates that flood right on into it. So it is a hub and can be ground zero for human trafficking. So we appreciate that report. We'll see more from you later on the stream. Again, we appreciate your time. Okay, you guys, we hope you'll stay with us for this news conversation where we are streaming live for you on our Fox 5 Atlanta YouTube channel, Fox Local, fox5atlanta.com, even on TikTok and Instagram. We want to keep knowing what stories matter to you. In the meantime, I hope you'll stick around because we are talking about how President Trump is in Switzerland right now for the World Economic Forum, but Denmark and his aim to acquire it is what's taking center stage. We'll explain right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Fox 5 News Live. I'm Alex Whitler. Thank you so much for being here with us for your news conversation. Hopefully, you guys are leaving some comments for us on the stories that stand out to you in the chat. We are live on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and, of course, fox5atlanta.com and the free Fox Local app. Big news for you this late morning, going into the afternoon, is about President Trump and how he's in Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. So after an electrical issue with Air Force One recently, the president did officially land in Davos. If you were curious about the details on that situation, there was some sort of electrical issue. They swapped out aircraft. Everything's fine. So the president was expected to use his appearance to address affordability issues in the U.S., but there's been some concern about his ambitions to acquire Greenland that could overshadow that plan. So we'll talk about more of that in a moment. But first, we're following this hour-long remark that he made from the president, and there was a brief question and answer period. So let's listen in.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your speech. I do have a few follow-up questions, if it's okay. I don't think I should start with Greenland, maybe. I'll start with the economy. The U.S. economy is doing really, really well. But how to sustain this growth moving forward? Because there's always a recession looming around the corner.
Well, you know, the one thing about economies and recessions is sometimes you get hit unexpectedly and there's nothing you can do about it. All brilliant people, but there's nothing. One example was COVID. We had an economy going at levels like nobody had ever seen my first 2.5, 3 years. And then I heard the word pandemic, not COVID. They came up with that name over a period of time. We won't get into that. But I heard the word pandemic. And I had a poll come out that was so strong just prior to that. And I was with the two best pollsters, McLaughlin and Fabrizio. And they said, sir, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back and ran as president and vice president, they couldn't beat you. And then what happened is the following day, I was told to stay tuned because there's something really bad happening in China. There are bodies laying all over Wuhan, right around that certain building that we talk about. I always said it came from Wuhan. It did come from Wuhan. And they were body bags. We saw it by satellite. And they said, there are strange things happening in China. And so it began. And we ended up with the COVID, and the whole world suffered. We did a phenomenal job. I don't think we got the credit we deserved. We did something that Operation Warp Speed, which some people say was one of the greatest military feats ever. We did a great job. Used our military, used a lot of people. But sometimes you get hit with things, nothing you can do. You get hit with things like that unexpectedly. And we got through it. And when I left, the stock market was higher than it was previous to the COVID coming up. And that was, I called it a great achievement. But things happen. Bad things happen. The things that we can stop are wars, if we're smart. That we can stop. Those are a matter of being intelligent and having intelligent people on the other side, because wars are the worst of all. Wars are worse than anything. But we can stop wars because that's sort of up to us. But things like dust flying in the air, wherever COVID comes from or whatever comes, sometimes you have to be a little bit lucky. But we are poised to have an economy like no other, not only in this country, but anywhere. And you know, when you hear the kind of numbers that I can tell you that Scott Bessent was with me the other day, and he's looking at numbers. He said, I can't. And that's all he's done his whole life, pretty much your whole life. Scott, you weren't going to be a football player, I don't think. Scott was not that great at football, but he was always good at numbers, right? And he was looking at numbers. He said, I've never seen anything like this. We're poised to do things that no other country has ever done. And, you know, luck, I hate to say it, but we need a little luck. We don't want to get hit by something that nobody could have thought. Whoever thought we were going to hit by a pandemic? You know, when I heard the word pandemic, I said, oh, that's an ancient problem. World War I, they lost 100 million people. It actually ended World War I. A lot of people don't know. The Spanish flu in World War I ended the war because all the soldiers were sick. The soldiers were so sick on both sides. And that war was raging, and they were all dying from the Spanish flu. They were sick as dogs. They couldn't fight. So, you know, you don't know how that would have turned out. But so we do, I mean, subject to that, and I always have to put a caveat in for it, but we're poised to have the greatest growth of any large country, I think any country that there's been. When you look at what's happening in the United States, it's really amazing.
Thank you. One thing that maybe keeps you up at night, I know you don't sleep that much anyway, Mr. President, is the debt. The U.S. debt is high, is now the biggest expenditure on your budget. How to get out of that impasse?
Well, the big thing is growth. I mean, growth is the way. If we grow like this, we go from having a $37 trillion. We go from having high debt to low debt. But we also are cutting expenses, you know, the old-fashioned way. We have extraordinary growth. I think we're going to be growing our way out. I think we're going to be paying off debt. We're taking in tremendous money from tariffs fairly. And again, I'm using them judiciously. You know, Switzerland's a case study. I could have gotten much more. I could have asked for much more. But we're using them judiciously. But I think growth, most importantly, and then cutting costs. Now, if you take a look at Minnesota, $19 billion in fraud and other things. People going to airports, they came into the country, they don't have 10 cents, and they're leaving with hundreds of thousands of cash in their bags. When we get to that, and our DOJ, Pam, and Todd, and all the people that work over there, and all of the people that work in here, I can tell you, Scott Bessent is working on that. It's a priority, right? You have your whole team. We're in there looking for where this money is coming from, how much it is. It could be more than $19 billion. Can you believe that? That's just one state. If we were able to cut out 50% of the fraud, 50%, and we should be able to do better than that, we would have a balanced budget without having to talk about even growth. So we have a lot of options, but we're working very hard on that. That's a big deal. It's not just the protests, the fake protests done by agitators and, professional insurrectionists. That's what they are. They're professional troublemakers. But we are looking very strong at the money, too, in Minnesota and other places.
I think, Mr. President.
Okay,
also
you were just listening into some of the president's comments as he is in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum. We know that's something that many of you guys want more information about. Some of you are questioning, what does this even mean? That's why we're going to continue to follow this for you. It is happening now. As soon as we get any further developments, you can count on us to bring them to you, both on air and online in the capacity that you're watching right now. We do want to show you something else, though, also related to President Trump. You've probably heard quite a bit of talk about Greenland lately, right? Well, we also want to talk about Gaza. There's a couple of different things here at play. So the president has pledged to fight any NATO country with tariffs if they stand in his way of purchasing Greenland, the territory that currently belongs to Denmark. Now, this all comes as the president is also asking for international unity. He invited dozens of countries to pay $1 billion. Again, billion with a B, to become permanent members of his Gaza Board of Peace. You might remember late in 2025, we had lots of breaking news about that peace deal between Hamas and Israel. This is essentially trying to move that deal forward to continue a peaceful area in the Gaza Strip. The Board of Peace is part of the second phase of President Trump's ceasefire agreement in that Israel-Hamas war, for specifics for you there. And it is expected to oversee the rebuilding of that area that's just been war-torn. If you've seen the images or kept up with that news, you already know. Now, just yesterday, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said there's overwhelming support behind these plans. But of course, there's also going to be some resistance, and we want to cover all sides of this. So if this is a story that resonates with you, please leave me a comment in the chat. I'd be curious to know what you think. Now, France's foreign minister says his country supports peace, but does warn the board may wind up undermining the United Nations, something to consider here. Now, President Trump has hinted it could do just that as well. In his own words here, I'm quoting, he said, "I wish we didn't need a board of peace, but the United Nations," he goes on to say, "with all of the wars that I settled, the United Nations never helped me on one war." Other big news for you this hour. Could there be another government shutdown? We're just days away from that possibility. And if Congress can't come to an agreement on a federal spending bill, it will feel like deja vu all over again. Our last government shutdown was historic. You remember at the very end of 2025, we broke a record here. Well, so far, congressional negotiators have floated a massive $1.2 trillion spending package. It includes funding for ICE, which has Democratic lawmakers boiling. There's been lots of news coming out of different states, but especially Minnesota, all because of ICE instances, one of which was deadly. You might remember a mother, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, was shot and killed at an ICE officer's hands about 2 weeks ago. So if this funding bill were to be passed by the House and Senate, the legislation, which combines 4 separate spending bills into a package called a minibus, would be the final piece of the puzzle for Congress to avert another government shutdown come January 30th. So again, you guys, that is less than 10 days away. And the last time we did see people who were waiting to get their paychecks. So it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, comes of this. Here's another thing that I know you guys are going to start talking about because it is almost tax season. And we're learning that there are some big changes coming to the IRS from the leadership board, if you will. So in a letter addressed to the agency's 74,000 employees, something that the Associated Press got its hands on, the chief executive officer announced new priorities and a reorganization of the IRS, at least their executive leadership. I want to make that clear. So if you're curious, what does this shakeup mean for you? Here's the TLDR, the bottom line. The average refund amount was just over $3,000, so $3,167. This is all coming from IRS data. And the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said on several occasions that the effects of Republican tax laws will result in bigger refunds this year. Now, of course, that remains to be seen. That's something that many of us have questions about because we're all considering when we're going to start filing. How does it impact us? One more note here. Back in June, there was a warning to Congress that this tax season could be a rocky one after a series of mass layoffs in the IRS brought on by DOGE. You might remember we used to say that a lot, the Department of Government Efficiency. So that was a lot of news to keep you abreast of. Please let me know if any of those stories stood out to you. Remember, we are streaming to you live for this news conversation, not your typical newscast, one in which we hear the stories that really do matter to you. So we're seeing your comments right now on TikTok. We're also live on our Fox 5 Atlanta YouTube channel and our Instagram. So all right, you guys, I hope you'll stick around because we still have a lot to talk about this hour. Hard news being a follow-up to a case, a murder case from 2001. You've heard the name Tara Baker. We'll follow up on that soon. Then we're helping you with your New Year's resolutions. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone, to the stream. It's 11:34 now, and we are staying on top of some local news for you. A big story that I imagine many of you remember. There's an update in the Tara Baker homicide. The big question of the day is, will judicial bias accusations end up delaying the trial for her suspected killer? 2023 cold case law enabled DNA breakthroughs that allowed authorities to arrest this man that you just saw on your screen there. 23 years after this woman, Tara Baker's murder. You might remember that she was a law student at the University of Georgia. And defense attorneys have filed a motion to disqualify the judge, alleging judicial bias and systemic legal errors. So there's supposed to be a special hearing happening today that will determine if the trial judge is removed and if that will end up delaying the trial that was supposed to take place next month. Now, I want to give you some background here because I recognize we have people watching from all different parts of the country. You might not be as familiar with this. So for some background noise here, 25 years ago, the University of Georgia law student was killed. And it took more than 2 decades for police to arrest a suspect and bring this cold case murder to a head. It is moving forward, but again, with that caveat. So we're going to keep you posted on that actual hearing. We've got a team of journalists who are listening in to see if they end up removing this judge from the case. You know, her family has been waiting for justice for almost 25 years now, and it'll be interesting to see what becomes of that situation. Another big story that has so many of you talking, I've seen your comments on social media about this. You remember Morris Brown College and its huge fight to get accreditation? Well, this man on your screen is the president, and he's considered one of the main faces that helped get its reaccreditation. But last week, he was fired from the position. This week, he's been reinstated. So that's just 8 days after that abrupt termination. It came from the Board of Trustees. James led the school's hard reset. Again, that was back in 2022. And they say that this is something that they had to backtrack on, acknowledging that this is a sudden reversal. So I remember when we were talking about this on Good Day Atlanta this morning, we pointed out that the school said that originally the firing was necessary. He went forward and said that there was never a substantive explanation given. So it has been a bit of a flip-flop and a back and forth. But again, as of today at 11:36 a.m., Kevin James is back in his position as the president of Morris Brown College. The question is, will he stay in the position? We don't know. If you have any insight, we'd love to hear from you. Anyone who graduated from Morris Brown College, please leave a comment in the chat. I'd love to know what your perspective is on this. Another big local story this morning is one of an officer who was grazed by a bullet during a scuffle with a fugitive. Take a good look at your screen here. This is an image of that fugitive. So an Atlanta police officer was hurt while taking this man to the ground during an arrest. This was Monday afternoon. A gun in the fugitive's waistband went off and it grazed that officer's leg. So the man you were looking at is Raquan Brooks. He was wanted for a 3-year-old murder in DeKalb County at the time of his arrest. Now, what we do know is that this happened on Troy Street around 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon after authorities received reports of some sort of dispute involving a weapon. I know that sounds vague, but authorities are often called out to situations like this, not knowing what they're going to face when they finally get there. Investigators say there was an argument that broke out that escalated to a gun being pulled out. The man ran away from the scene, and he was found in the 200 block of Stafford Street. And during that arrest, again, that man, who apparently was 28 years old, authorities say resisted, reached into his waistband, and that's when the gun went off. That officer, though, is expected to survive. Now, we do have some other lighter-hearted news here. I wonder if you knew this. I sure didn't. Apparently, Georgia ranks #1 for aerospace manufacturing. And I feel like Chris Rosenthal has been doing a lot of stories like this, talking about aircraft. You get the fun assignments. So where are you now, and what are you learning?
Yeah, you know, Georgia, like you said, it is the #1 export of Georgia's aerospace industry. And of course, Georgia Tech is right on the forefront of that. I'm actually at the Ben T. Zinn combustion lab here at Georgia Tech. And I'm joined by Adam Steinberg here of the lab. And Adam, thanks for joining us here today. This is kind of like a mad scientist workshop here a little bit, and we're wearing our jackets because it is kind of cold in here. But Tell me, first of all, we're going to look at some experiments here in a second, but tell me about Georgia Tech's role in this industry. It's a $58 billion a year industry.
Yeah, aerospace is huge in Georgia. I actually didn't realize that when I moved to the state, just how impactful aerospace actually is in the state. As you said, a $58 billion industry, 200,000 plus jobs statewide, and the School of Aerospace Engineering here at Georgia Tech plays really a key role in both the talent pipeline as well as contributing novel technology and novel research to the aerospace community. We have almost 2,500 aerospace engineering students. We're the #1 producer of aerospace engineering graduate degrees in the U.S., and we're doing over $54 million a year in externally sponsored research in the School of Aerospace Engineering. So,
and they're big companies that we know of, smaller companies, and this is a lot of different things here. Yeah.
Absolutely. We do research with the federal government in various branches, the FAA, the Department of Defense or the Department of War, Department of Energy, but also many industrial sponsors. If you think of the companies that you fly with and the companies that make all of the components that you fly with, they're all doing research and development here at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and a lot of that starts here, and a lot of that starts with some of the experiments that you guys do.
Absolutely.
What are some of the projects you guys are working on?
We have over 50 projects going on in the lab right now, so we can talk about a couple of them. One thing that we're going to look at in just a moment is a project on hypersonic propulsion. So you may have heard hypersonics come up in the news recently. Hypersonic means flying essentially really, really fast. We say Mach 5 or above, so 5 times, 6 times the speed of a commercial airplane, many thousands of miles an hour. So very, very fast. And one of the hardest things about this is trying to get the engine to work. Imagine trying to light a match in a many thousand mile per hour windstorm, right? You need to have that match lit and burning to get your vehicle to propel itself forward. So we have here at the lab come up with a new way of making a flame sit in this really, really fast flow. And to understand all of these complicated processes, we use lasers. So we go in and we use lasers. We'll put on our very cool laser goggles.
I'm putting them on here too, behind the camera.
And you can come in here, and this is a room where we are generating the laser source. Okay, and then this laser beam, we manipulate it in this room, and then we pass it into the test cell that's around the corner where we have our hypersonic combustion experiment going on, and we can go and visit that.
Oh yeah, let's go take a look.
Yeah. So we use the lasers to go in and measure all of the detailed chemistry, thermodynamics, physics. When that laser light, that intense laser light interacts with the flame and the flow, we can determine lots and lots of different things. So this is what it looks like on the side of the experiment. Here are 2 students, Jonathan and Adaraj. Hey. And if you look over there, this is that replicates the flow inside of one of those hypersonic engines. We're essentially making a many thousand mile an hour gas shoot out of that jet, and we spin it and we do all of these other things with it. But then we can put some fuel into it and ignite it. We ignite it using a laser, and then we study all of the chemistry, all of the fluid mechanics, all of the thermodynamics using those lasers in this sort of system.
And you're saying this is for that hypersonic speeds. We probably won't be flying hypersonic ourselves with the airlines anytime soon, but what are some of the applications this would be used for?
So hypersonic has a variety of applications. It has a national defense application, but also hypersonics is of interest for things like reusable space launch. If you can use the air in the atmosphere instead of having to carry oxygen in your rocket, you can make access to space much more efficient and much cheaper.
Gotcha. So this is something we could see getting us into space, maybe getting us to Mars one day even, huh?
Well, you'll get you out of the atmosphere. We're not going to get you to Mars, but we can get you out of the atmosphere potentially a lot more efficiently and a lot less expensive than using rockets.
How fast again is hypersonic?
4,000, 5,000 miles an hour in that ballpark. That's where it starts, and then it gets faster from there.
Wow. That's amazing. You know, we're going to be looking at some more of these experiments that they're doing later, and some of them that apply to hypersonics, some of them apply to some of the airlines and planes that you might be flying in commercially. So I'll be sticking with them all day here at Georgia Tech.
Really what's fascinating to watch, because it looked more like a party than anything else, seeing all those flashing lights. It was fun to see. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, and the glasses too.
Yeah, all of it.
All right.
All right, Chris, thanks for keeping us in the know. We'll touch base with you later on the stream. Okay, we also want to talk about a stadium-sized honey donation. And if you're looking at me like, Alex, what does that mean? Let me try to explain. There's another initiative to fight hunger in the city of Atlanta. You know, that's a passion project for many politicians. So we are checking in now with Eli Jordan for a look at this partnership. It's involving a lot of different people. Sue Honey, Smoothie King, Second Helpings. Walk us through.
Hey, good morning, Alex. Yeah, I am at Second Helpings Atlanta over here in Bankhead, the west side of Atlanta, and they got over 600 gallons of honey to distribute. Lots of honey, and it is the ultimate non-perishable, because honey, I mean, this has a shelf life of potentially thousands of years, and so that makes it a rarity to get. And I am with Second Helpings Executive Director, Paul Clements. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Hey, good.
So tell me, I mean, how big of a deal is this honey donation for you guys?
Yeah, it's a really big deal for us. Honey, I always like to call, is sort of this heroic staple item that most people have in their kitchens. And particularly for us or anybody who works in the food donation space, getting honey, a staple item like this, is very, very rare, because honey, as you just mentioned, has a shelf life of thousands of years. And so we don't see a lot of this being donated from a lot of our traditional donation partners like grocery stores. So we were incredibly excited whenever Suvi reached out offering to donate these 3 pallets, 6,400 bottles of honey that you see here today. And when we sent out the notice to our nonprofit partners about this, just to show how incredibly valuable this is to our network and how rare it is, we allocated this entire donation in less than 32 minutes. And as you've seen here today a little bit, this product is already going out into the community.
You had 3 pallets here, now you're just down to 1.
Yeah, just down to 1. And this is going to our network of nonprofit organizations that are church pantries, soup kitchens, homeless shelters, anybody you can think of that's on the front lines of feeding people. And it's even going to some programs with feeding programs like Ronald McDonald House, for example. Solidarity Sandy Springs is a food pantry. So again, a nice mixed variety of folks who are going to put this to good use.
So who helped you out was Sue B and Smoothie King. Smoothie King and Sue B teamed up. Smoothie King uses a lot of honey in their smoothies, and I guess it just made sense that you wanted to help, team up with Sue B and contribute. So they gave you 3 pallets. And tell me real quick though, you guys do not. You're not a food bank. You tell me real quick though, what does Second Helpings Atlanta do exactly?
Yeah, so Second Helpings Atlanta is a food rescue organization. So I kind of like to call us the DoorDash of food rescue. So we utilize a network of volunteer drivers who get in their personal vehicles and what we call 90-minute food rescue routes. So they go to the food donors, which are grocery stores, restaurants, event venues, pick up the food, and then deliver it to our nonprofit partners. And by the way, we do all this work free of charge. We don't charge the businesses for the service or the nonprofit partners that we deliver the food to.
So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I was talking earlier, when I worked at a fast food place when I was younger, my buddies would come and I'd like hand them the leftover food at night, and that was a no-no. But this is kind of like going around that and actually utilizing that food for people who need it, correct?
Yeah. Laws have changed over the past several decades, which allows businesses to donate this food. And every year in the United States, we throw away as a country approximately 149 billion meals worth of completely safe edible food. And so we exist to capture that food and tackle 2 big issues. One is food waste and the harm that can cause to the environment, while also tackling hunger at the same time and making sure that good food gets into the hands of people who need it.
And so what's happening now is like, organizations that are signed up with you guys are coming and getting the honey now.
Yes.
And they're going to donate it They're the catalyst.
Yeah, they're going to hand out. So we've got a couple things that are happening. Some are partner agencies, so they're the ones that run the programs. Are coming to pick up. They'll use it and distribute it out to their clients. And then we also have some volunteer drivers who we've seen come in today as well. So we're running a few routes from our warehouse today to nonprofit organizations throughout Metro Atlanta. And these are the organizations who don't have a volunteer base or a truck or a vehicle or the means to come get the honey themselves. We're making these deliveries to them.
Awesome. Well, this is a big deal. I mean, I'm a big fan of honey. I love honeybees, and honey is a very important thing. We need the bees and all that. But also, too, it's a great organic sweetener.
Yes.
It'll last forever, and, you know, it's actually got a lot of good healing powers and nutrients in it and all that, and it has gone fast. Alex, this is, you know, honey is a popular thing for people out there. They rarely get it in these food drives, and this isn't a food drive, but they're giving it to people who, you know, give food drives. But this is a big deal for Sue Bee and Smoothie King to donate this to Second Helpings Atlanta to get this out to needy families eventually out there. And it has a shelf life. Like I said, the ultimate non-perishable honey can last thousands of years. And that's what's happening here in Bankhead, in west side of Atlanta, here at Second Helpings, where Sue Bee and Smoothie King have donated over 600 gallons of honey.
Enough
to
cover
Second
a
Helpings.
football
And real quick, secondhelpingsatlanta.org.
Correct, yes.
Secondhelpingsatlanta.org. If you ever want to get on a list to help donate some food or whatever, that's the website to go to.
Great. We appreciate it. I do love honey. I have had honey corrode over because I just always have it in my kitchen cabinet. So it does last a long time.
Just
but
put it in some warm water and it'll just get it all back down to regular, you know?
Exactly. So that's
Some
a good
warm water
tip
and
that
it'll
I'm
be
getting from
fine.
you. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. I learned something new at this job every day. Thank you again, Eli, for that. We appreciate it. Okay, we hope you guys will stay with us because, as I promised, we're going to be talking about how to stay safe while pursuing your New Year's resolutions. Hopefully they're still intact. If they're not, that's okay. We're going to get you right on track. And we also are getting a lot of comments from people saying, what's the deal with the weather? What's it going to be like in Gwinnett County? What about in other states? We'll talk about all of that and more right after this. Welcome back, you guys. Maybe you heard us. We were still talking about honey. I don't know if you guys knew that when it corrodes over, all you have to do is stick it in some hot water or just eat it when it's all crusty. But that's the best part about this news conversation. We just love learning around here. But we have another thing that we want to talk about, your New Year's resolutions. I know many of you guys are putting in that work. You're trying to get your summer body. You're building it now in the winter. But we want to slow you down a little bit to make sure that you are safe. So joining us now with some tips is Dr. Trevor Turner. Great to see you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Great. So let's just jump right on in. Knees. That seems to be a big sticking point for people, quite literally for some. What do we need to know about them as we work out?
Yeah, one of the things that is remarkable about knees is every pound that exists above the knee joint itself exerts 4 pounds of pressure across the knee to somebody who's working out. So sometimes that means even a small amount of weight gain or weight loss can make a really big difference in terms of the load that the knee itself is bearing when somebody works out. So very important to keep that in mind as you program new volume and intensity into your routine, and also as you execute certain types of movements to go through the full safe range of motion.
We hear people often saying no pain, no gain, and we think that when our muscles are aching, that means that we're going to start seeing some growth here. We also know a lot of people have back pain when they're doing their squats. So what do you make of all of this? At what point should we start saying, no, this pain is a problem?
Yeah, I think we think about how experienced someone is as a lifter in terms of what they're going to do safely, but there's been studies on what puts maximum amount of pressure on a disc in the spine. And we know that positions to where your spine is flexed, to where you're bent really far over, like you were sitting forward in a chair, or sitting forward and twisting at the same time, tends to put the most pressure on your spine. And so we spend a lot of time both with patients and as coaches talking about what we call a neutral spine technique. We're really mindful of flexing that core musculature and keeping the spine in a neutral position instead of one that's bent forward or twisted, especially if you're lifting weights or under load.
That's some really good information, especially for those of us who kind of put our workout goals on the back burner. It's nice to restart this up with you, Dr. Turner. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And if you guys wanted more information about this, we've got it for you on our website, fox5atlanta.com. We've spoken with Dr. Turner before. He's a wealth of information. Now let's get back to the story that many of you have been talking about. I see your comments on our Fox 5 Atlanta TikTok, on our YouTube channel. You guys want to know what's the deal with the weather. Well, it's pretty today, but it's cold, and it's only going to get colder, maybe even icy into the weekend. We have the potential for a winter storm that'll bring snow, but most importantly, ice to our area. So that live look outside, nice now, but it'll change soon. Governor Brian Kemp is advising all Georgians to stock up on food, and they want you to fill up on gas right now. That's a message that I need to remember. They also want people to be prepared in case the power goes out. So get your portable chargers and things of that nature. Delta Airlines is all ahead. They're offering flexibility to customers with pre-existing plans to fly this weekend. So go ahead and consider changing your flight. I believe at last check, the severe weather was starting to hit the North Georgia area around Saturday in the suburbs. So keep that in mind. So here's some of the notes that we were getting from our meteorologists. Actually, we're going to talk more about that on your news at noon. I'm hearing the producer saying, sorry, we just got to go. So thank you guys so much for being engaged. Stick around because your noon news starts right after this.